I want to tell you about a story that happened tonight. I jumped out of my car to fill it up with fuel and I noticed a guy that was fixing his van just in the car park. As I was paying for my fuel, I just felt that I should go over and see if he needed any help. As I was heading towards him, he just said, "Well, you've got a really strong Kiwi accent." So immediately we had this rapport. He was actually from New Zealand originally as well. And what he needed was a clamp to go around the hose of his radiator that had popped off. And what he had found wasn't big enough. So I started suggesting some places where he could go. And I even got out my phone and started ringing ahead to some of the fuel stations that were down the road. But there was nothing or no place that could help him. Every person I called, no one had a clamp that was big enough for what he needed. And he started asking me what I did for a job, and I shared with him that I talked to people about God and faith in the online space. And he was like, "Oh no, you're not a Christian, are you? Or a religious person?" And I said, "Well, I'm not a religious person, but I do love Jesus. He's changed my life." And you could tell that he was a little bit put off initially, but he was still happy to talk. I was helping him, right? So we just had this little bit of banter back and forth. And as each phone call happened and as each person said no, they couldn't help with what he needed, it was starting to become evident that he wasn't going to get what he needed for the night. So I said, "Well, how about we ask God?" as he was heading to the back of his van to put some stuff in the back. And he's like, "No, don't do that." And I was like, "We can do that." I'm like, "Lord Jesus, I ask that you would help to bring a solution to this." I made one more phone call. It wasn't successful. And then I just had this idea. I said, "Can you go back and get the clamps from your boot?" So he got the clamps and I was like, "Are you sure you can't join them together?" And he's like, No, you can't." I was like, "Go on, show me." So he pulled one apart and he's like, "See, you can't." And I said, "But what happens if you like click that in there and you click that in there and screw that?" I was like, good old Kiwi ingenuity working here. Anyway, turns out that's exactly what happened. We were able to actually connect two clamps together and that clamp would be big enough to put on the hose for his radiator. So how cool is that? And then as I was driving away, he said to me, "God works in mysterious ways." And I was like, he sure does, doesn't he? Now, for David, he just wasn't in a place to hear all about God and for me to share, the full gospel message with him or anything like that. You could tell he was pretty sort of freaked out to start off with. But I tell you, by the time I left him, I was able to say to him, there's a David in the Bible and he was a man after God's own heart. And God really isn't that scary. What you could do is just talk to him. And we had this laugh and he thanked me. And he said to me, "You've helped me and you're not weird." And I think sometimes that's what people need to see. They get freaked out by Christianity, Christians, religious people. But really, we're just normal, everyday people that are living a life on mission. That's what I'm doing. That's what you can do. And I just want to encourage you today. If you see someone in your world that just needs a little bit of help, why not stop, see if you can help them? I don't know, I'm not a mechanic. I didn't know how I was going to help this guy, but I just felt to do it. Is there somebody in your everyday journey that you see that you can simply go up and start a conversation with? You just never know how it might end.